Good afternoon, you're listening to me, Shazia One, on the BBC Asian Network. Now I want to ask how you would feel if your employer didn't allow you to wear religious symbols at work. We talk a lot on this show about this. We were talking recently about carrying the Quran into work, and we had a good debate on that. But the European Court of Justice has ruled that companies in the EU can ban workers from wearing headscarves and other religious symbols. The story actually broke while we were on air, so we were keen to talk about it. And the ruling is issued as guidance to French and Belgian courts. So I want to talk about religious symbols. Do you feel comfortable wearing religious items in your workplace? Now, this ruling has been done for headscarves, but they've applied it to other religious symbols too. How would you feel if you were told you couldn't wear the headscarf, the qara, or a turban to work? Maybe you think it's a good idea. With me now, I've got two guests to talk about this, Fatima Al-Badri and Arif Rahman. Fatima and Arif, welcome to the Asian Network.
Thank you.
Now, Fatima, I want to come to you first. You're a student and you wear a headscarf. What do you make of this ruling?
I think it's ridiculous. I think that the ruling itself can be used as a tool to exercise Islamophobia, and especially given that in this time we've got a rise in right-wing extremism, whether it's in America with Trump or in the Netherlands with Geert Wilders. I think it's really important to protect individuals from prejudice. I think that this is just taking steps backwards, and we should be moving forward to create a safe working environment for anyone who wishes to practice their religion publicly or privately, as that is a human right, and without any form of discrimination.
Now, you're a student at the moment, and I imagine you'll be wanting to go into the workplace soon. How would you feel if an employer in the UK or anywhere else said to you, look, you're brilliant, you've got all the skills that we want, but we don't want somebody in the workplace that wears a hijab?
I think it's ridiculous, because how could you dismiss my ability to perform my job appropriately simply because I choose to cover my hair? I think it's really tragic that we've reached this stage in the EU when we should be free to practice our religion.
Now, for anyone that isn't clear on this, the European Court of Justice ruling was prompted by the case of a receptionist who was actually fired for wearing a headscarf to work at the security company G4S in Belgium. Arif, do you agree with this decision?
It's also, she was working for 3 years.
Sorry, Fatima. Let me go to Arif now. Arif, do you agree with this decision that's come out today of the headscarf being banned in certain places in the EU?
Well, I think Europe and towards the Western world, the ideas generally are of very secular public life. So, in a workplace where a lot of different background people comes and joins and work together, there is an issue of Islam itself bringing in an identity, and it could create potentially community within communities, which in a workplace environment may not be very conducive to the work ethics.
Well, what do you mean by that, Arif? That communities within communities that might not be conducive to the work ethic? What, do you think too many Muslims in one company is a bad idea? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, I'm saying too many evangelical, any religious identity in a work area is not a good idea. So generally...
Surely in that case, you shouldn't discriminate against a woman who wear the headscarf, because you're providing an obstacle to integration if women are going to have to leave a company simply on the basis that they wish to practice their religion, and many women consider it compulsory to cover their hair. So
this is the thing. I mean,
contradicting your own point by saying that you don't want people to be segregated from others.
Who's interrupting me? Is it Shazia or the other host?
Arif, I'm Shazia. I'm the host. Regardless of who is who. No, but look, listen. Fatima is getting her point across. We'll give you an equal chance to get your point across too.
Well, I thought I was in the middle of making my point.
Well, look, you're free to make your point now, so carry on.
Yes. So what I was saying is, generally, Islam itself creates an identity within when there is a secular environment when everybody from different background comes in and joins. Well,
Arif, you're singling out Islam here. This is about all faiths. This ruling happens to be about the headscarf, but, it recovers all religious symbols. It could be the qara, it could be the turban.
That's true.
And you keep singling out Islam. Why is that?
Because this particular, as you rightly say, this ruling was triggered by a Muslim woman.
Yes, that's right, but the ruling covers all faiths. Why are you singling out Islam?
Well, I just said to you, this is the reason. So what I'm trying to say is Islam itself within Europe and actually throughout the world tries to create or actually instills an idea inside of any, recently following of Wahhabism and, that believes Islam should be part of an identity. In my view, Islam or any religion should be
Arif,
part of somebody.
I'm a Muslim and I am not a Wahhabi and I still choose to wear the headscarf. In fact, I'm extremely against Wahhabism and the entire ideology. However, I still wear a headscarf, and I don't think that me wearing a headscarf provides any form of threat or uncomfort to my fellow students in university, or if I was to progress to a job, I don't think that I'm harming anyone by wearing a headscarf. I think that it's completely reasonable, as I would never ask you to not wear any religious symbol which may be appropriate to your religion. I think that your point is very weak and that it has no foundation, and I think that you should respect women in general and however they wish to dress, or any religious person. I think that if your opinion is that practicing your religion publicly creates segregation from within a working environment, then if you would like Muslim women to integrate in society, in communities, to work, to invest into the community in general, then I think your point is actually contradicting that, because I would not work in a company if they asked me to remove my headscarf. So would it satisfy you that I was to avoid working just because I'm unable to practice my religion publicly?
Yes, that's the idea. So practicing somebody's religion publicly, it goes against secular ideas. Because
that's a human right. That's a human right. To practice religion publicly or privately. It's a human right. It's a human right. It's a liberty. It's choice. Just as it is my choice to wear a headscarf, it is my choice to practice my religion. You have that choice also, and I feel that it's very backward to assume that one should not have a choice.
Well, it's very backward to follow a Saudi emblem wearing constantly. And if I ask you
Arif, do you know what? I'm going to interrupt you here, and it is me interrupting you, because you keep singling out Islam. You've mentioned Saudi Arabia, you've mentioned Wahhabism, you've mentioned Muslims. I keep making it clear to you that this ruling affects all religious symbols. So let's talk about the turban. Let's talk about, the qara. Let's talk about the cross. This covers so much more, Arif, than just Islam. So let's open it up to that. Let me give you a scenario. You've got somebody who happens to be Sikh in the workplace. He's wearing a turban. You've got a colleague that happens to be Catholic. She's wearing a cross. Now, is that turban or that cross going to offend you?
Well, of course, it's not going to offend me. Sorry, but if, for example, 10 cross-wearing evangelical Christian tries to bring in their ideas or tries to create.
No one is trying to impose their ideas.
Fatima, let's let Arif finish. Let's just let him have his say, and then you can have your say.
So generally, that's what I'm trying to say. It's a comparison. If you are trying to make a comparison, the reason this particular ruling came into being is because of a Muslim woman decided to go to the court. And it's not the first time a headscarf wearing women decide to go to court. In England, things have happened before as well. So my question would be, who funds them to go to the court and who actually makes the...
So Arif, again, I've asked you for the third time not to make this about Islam, and you've come back to it again. We've widened this to religious symbols, Arif, because this covers... Let me finish. This ruling covers all religious symbols. So we've widened it up. You seem to be quite offended, Arif, by the headscarf, but not so much by the turban and the cross. Why is that?
I think it's because the cultural context that turban or cross may not have in these days. Your guest said she's not Wahhabi, but any young people from the last 20 years or so who've grown up, the ideas of wearing a headscarf, wearing a Saudi emblem is, I know you're going to say why you're going towards that. It's just to make a comparison because we have not seen many, turban wearing Sikhs causing problem. How many? All
right, Arif, can I just get this clear? Arif, let me get this clear with you. Fatima, I'll let you have your say as well. Arif, are you saying that you are offended by a woman in the workplace that wears a hijab, but you are not offended by a man in the workplace that wears a turban?
Can we just highlight the fact that he said many young Muslim people...
Fatima, we'll come back to you.
I work in East London, and
so Arif, let me just get to the point, okay? And then Fatima, you can have your say after that. So you, Arif, would be offended by a man in the workplace?
Yeah, Shazia, I heard
with a turban.
I was going to answer that. If I can keep not getting interrupted. So I work in an East London office, and there are lots of in my term, hijab wearing or headscarf wearing, women from Muslim background, in my office, and I interact with them all day long. That's not. I don't have any problem personally with them. My problem is the idea of Islamism and the reason women, when they grow up, they are made to wear that headscarf by their family as part of an identity, and that identity is not conducive to secular identities where...
Arif, don't you think that that's a generalisation? I'm a proud Muslim woman. I identify as a feminist. Nobody is forcing me to wear a headscarf. In fact, one of my friends recently, she decided to wear a headscarf. Her husband doesn't like it. He's practicing Muslim. He's like, I'd prefer if you didn't. But it's her choice, and it's the choice of many women. And I think you're making sweeping generalisations about religion. Fatima, would you like to make your point?
Yes, please. I think that Arif is very confused. He goes on from saying that I find it quite offensive that he even questioned the ability of a Muslim woman to pay her legal fees. The lady that got fired from her company had been working for 3 years. So if your concern is Islam in itself, then surely for 3 years she wasn't fired because she did a brilliant job. Is that not correct? And then she was fired on the sole basis that she chose to wear the headscarf. Secondly, Arif, if you're saying that you've got Muslim women within your office that are wearing a headscarf and that you interact with, then how on earth can you find it offensive for any other woman to wear a headscarf in any other working environment? I don't understand your point. I think it's very flawed. I would like you to provide one clear point in general on how how me wearing the headscarf has any sort of link to the 0.05 Islamist extremists within the world. I want you to realise, seeing as you work in East London and there are many Muslims around you that have not bombed your office or caused any sort of problem, I want you to please provide a clear explanation on how that's the representation of extremism entirely.
Arif.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Fatima has asked you to provide an explanation of your views here.
I was trying to say something as well, but I got disconnected, I think, in the middle, so I couldn't hear most of it. But what I'm trying to say is this particular discussion came about as a breaking news today because of an ECJ rule, and the rule is trying to create a secular atmosphere in a workplace. So that's where I'm supporting, and my argument is about not because an individual Muslim woman wearing a headscarf would cause an issue, but the whole identity, Islamic identity or Muslim identity that is created surrounding wearing religious emblems. It's not a religious emblem, it's a political emblem. That's my issue with that. And it's Islam itself says that this is a complete code of life, and it's a political system as well. And I don't think political systems should be based on religion, and it creates, in an office, if you have too many Muslims, then some of them can be evangelical, and some of them could, bring in ideas which a lot of other people can find really offensive.
Do you find them offensive?
Islamic ideas, a lot of them, yes, I do find offensive. And I'm a blogger. I've been blogging for the last 10 years. A lot of my colleagues died in Bangladesh because of what we try to say against Islam. But individual Muslims, we differentiate between practicing Muslims who, I have friends practicing Muslim, but as a political agenda of Islam, that's what I have an issue with. And I think wearing a headscarf, inadvertently, a woman is told that, yes, it's your choice, etc. But the religious education that is given to a Muslim growing up, these days everywhere, is told that this is your identity and you should wear a headscarf to identify yourself as a Muslim. I'm saying there shouldn't be any need for that. I'm just maybe...
Okay, Arif, I'm going to have to move on here. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Arif and Fatima. And I just make it clear that is Arif's opinion on Islam. And it is quite a generalisation. Let me read some text that I've had on 81869. The first one is from Chandani, and it says, "Hi Shazia, why does a piece of cloth or a piece of jewellery make you religious? Surely being religious is about how you behave and think. On my travels, I've met many religious people, and none of them wore a headscarf or any other religious symbol." Got another text in. This one's anonymous, and it says, "Hi Shazia, you wouldn't sack someone for wearing a tie or a certain colour socks. So why sack someone who wears a headscarf? I've worked in retail and was told nail varnish wasn't allowed, and my response was that the colour of my nails will not prevent me doing my job. This is why racism and such things happen, not because of religion, but because of us human beings." What are your thoughts on this? If you've got something to say, you can tweet us at BBC Asian Network or text me on 81869. I want to go to Vivek, who has got in touch with us. Hello, Vivek. Welcome to the Asian Network.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for joining us. Now, you've heard Arif and Fatima on the line there talking about this ruling. Arif, very, very clear that he thinks that there is no place for religion in the workplace. And he sounded quite offended by too many Muslims in the workplace. What do you make of this ruling?
Okay, well, first of all, right, let's get back to the bare basics, okay? In Islam, there is nothing in the Quran or the Hadith that say that a woman has to wear a hijab, okay, or niqab or anything like that. There is nothing actually in the Quran, okay, or the Hadith.
All right, Vivek. Do you know what I just want to make? Let me just make this clear, though. This ruling is very much about religious symbols at work, whether that be the headscarf, whether that be the qurban, whether that be, the qara. This is not about religious texts and the rhetoric from that.
I was actually going to make the point that, right, in Sikhism, okay, listen, I'm a Hindu, okay, but in Sikhism, right, to wear the 5 Ks, you have to be baptized, okay, right? So a lot of Sikhs have not been baptized, so they forego that right to wear the 5 Ks. In Hinduism, right, you see a lot of Hindus wearing the red band around the wrists, okay? Now, that is not a requirement of Hinduism to have that, Okay, so therefore, in the workplace, I mean, I'm a medical professional, so in the workplace, I cannot wear something like that in the workplace. Okay, that's fine. I understand that, right? And similarly, in Christianity, there is nothing to say that you have to wear a cross just to show that you're Christian. Okay.
All right, Vivek, let me break this down, because let me break this down. Do you agree with this ruling today to ban headscarves and other religious symbols in the workplace?
No. Basically, right, if the religion says you have to wear it, right, and you're required to wear it, then that's fine. But if it's a requirement to wear it, that's great. If it's not a requirement, then of course the ban is fine.
So we're talking about how people interpret it. Vivek, thank you so much for getting in touch with us and on the Asian Network. If you've got any views on this ruling, and I'm sure you have, do get in touch with us. You can text us 81869. More after this track.